Alrighty, so in this video I'm going to be going over the process of resetting a password if you happen to have forgotten it using a Linux system. So one of the big reasons why it's always important to secure the actual drives themselves and the ability to boot to external media, as well as in Linux being able to secure the Grub bootloader. So right now we can show you that I am unable to log into my account. You'll just have to trust me that I can't log into it. And in order to sort of solve this process, we're going to reboot our system. So when we reset our system, in this case I'm using VMware, but VirtualBox has a similar process. You can reset the workstation, and when it's resetting, you're going to hold down the Shift key to pop open the Grub boot menu. So now that we have the Grub boot menu open, you're going to go ahead and select the Linux operating system that you're trying to reset the password on. And what we're going to do is we're going to edit the boot line. And in that specific code, we are going to tell it that we would like to load into single user mode. And single user mode is, so basically in Linux there's multi-user mode and there's single user mode. In single user mode, what's going to happen is it's not actually going to prompt you for a user account or for a password, because it's just going to load you directly into root. So now that we have this all done, we can go ahead and press Control X, and it's going to go ahead and load itself into our single user mode. It'll have a bit different of a loading screen. One of the things that you'll notice typically is the fact that it will be more text across the screen. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and press the Enter key to drop ourselves into single and we set a root password. So this is actually not going to work in this case. However, I know what the password is, so I'm going to type in the password. Normally, if you hadn't already set a root password on your system, which is not set by default, it would basically be prompting you and asking you for it would just let you in, basically. So it's going to drop you into root mode. And in root mode, we can now go ahead and run our password command to change our password. Now you might ask yourself, well, what is the username of my machine? What was my user account? If you forgot your password, good chances you probably forgot what your username is, since the username is different from the display name sometimes. So one of the things we can do is we can go ahead and cat out we're going to do a cat of our /etc/passwd. We're going to go ahead and pipe that into a tail, since we really only care about the last couple of lines in there. So what we're looking for is our user account, and we can see that with the user ID of 1000 and the group ID of 1000. So we're going to go ahead and reset that password. So what we can do now is go ahead and type in passwd. We can type in our username, press Enter. It's going to ask for our new password, which we're going to set to 1234, 1234, and now our password has successfully updated. After it's all said and done, you can go ahead and press Control and D, and it's going to load us back up to a Linux system. So that was actually a little bit of a surprise, only for the fact that I had forgotten that I actually did set a root password to secure single user mode. So now when I'm in here, I can type in 1234. And it's going to go ahead and... Now in the case that maybe you also somehow forgot your single user mode password, the other thing you can actually do is a different little neat trick. So if you have a Linux boot CD, which is what I have, you're going to go ahead and select that and make sure that it is connected. So we have our CD. We're going to go ahead and connect it. So we have it connected, and inside of there we have basically our Ubuntu ISO. So that's what's inside of there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and restart this system anyways. We're going to reset it, and instead of holding down the Shift key when it starts up, we're going to go ahead and attack it with the Escape key. And the reason being is because we want to change our boot. So we're going to go to the boot menu for our temporary boot option, CD-ROM, and it's going to boot us up. Now, while this is happening, we're not actually going to be installing the OS. So when it asks to do these checks, I typically will actually smack the check cancel. Now, the one interesting thing is obviously using the left control key in virtual software sometimes can be your escaping key. So you just got to be careful, because when you hit that, you might have to smack it a few times. So let's wait for this to load up. Alrighty, so we got that wonderful music to our ears. So it's going to start up into this window. We don't want this. So actually, let's just go ahead and click on the try. We're not going to be installing the OS. Hopefully I didn't catch that X too quickly. Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the terminal. So right now we're running from the live CD. So anything we do inside of here, once we restart, is going to be removed. However, what we're going to do is we're going to use the sudo -I to drop us into root. So right now we are on root for our bootable media. We're not actually on our drive. If we perform an fdisk-L to list off our disk drives, we look all the way at the bottom here. And what we're looking for is our Linux partition. So we see our Linux partition, ID of 83. In this case is SDA5, but yours could be really anything. It's hard to say. So what we're going to now do is we're going to go ahead and make a directory for us to mount our hard drive into. And then after we're done mounting the hard drive, we're going to chroot into this particular directory, and then we're going to run the password command so that it affects the other system. So if you remember that there's a password on this particular installation for root that it prompted us for. So let's go ahead and make directory /media SDA, and this is 5, so we'll use 5. And then we're going to go ahead and sudo, but we don't need a sudo because we're already in root. And we're going to go ahead and run the mount command. It's /dev/sda5/media SDA5. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to chroot /media SDA5. So now we can actually see our directories have changed a little bit where we're currently running out of. So instead of running out of the home directory where we were before, you can see we're actually in the root, but we're in the root of our drive that we just mounted. So now that we have this drive mounted, we can go ahead and do the same thing as we did before. We can do a cat, put my mouse back in the window. We can do a cat of /etc/passwd. Pipe that into a tail because we only need the last little bit. We're looking for the UID of Riley A. So we're going to go ahead and run a passwd Riley A. Enter in the new password 789. Password has now been updated. Perfect. And you might say, well, maybe also I want to change the root password. Well, you can maybe even do that too as well from here. But the account that we're changing does have sudo access, so that's perfectly fine as well. And now that we're all said and done here, if we actually were to run exit, you'd see it drop us back. And if we do the pwd for the present working directory, you can actually see that we've shifted to our home directory. And if we do the same thing as before, just to show you that I'm actually was mounted into something different, cat password to tail, you'll notice that that account that was previously there is not there because this is part of the live disk. Rather, before when I did the cat of the password file where the user accounts were, it was part of the root that I had mounted. So now that we're all said and done, I can simply do a restart by doing an init6. And init is just a fancy way of shutting down or rebooting the system, rather. All right, so we got this up. 789, I believe, is what we set it to. 789. And there you go. So you got two different ways to reset a password. One way, single user mode. In this case, it looks like with the newer versions of Ubuntu, it does prompt you for the password. However, in the older versions, it didn't. It just typically dropped you into root. One other interesting thing you can also do to sort of check out to see single user mode if you wanted to, was you can just simply from the command prompt type in sudo init1, typing in your password. which is not password anymore. And you'll see it actually drops me into single user mode. However, I do need that root password. So it's a great way to sort of deter people from getting into your machine. Hopefully you enjoyed this video.